Do you feel sick to your stomach at the thought of speaking on stages in front of thousands of people? What if I told you that that fear is a sign you need to do it, and actually you could use fear as your superpower? In today's Speaker Toolkit episode, I'm going to be sharing 3 ways you can become more confident in public speaking to get you prepared and ready and set up to deliver absolute success, impact, and life-changing transformations for your audience when you step on stage. Now, I will set this up. These 3 things, if you do this, you will become more confident. You will reframe fear as not something that stops you anymore, but actually is your green light. It becomes your superpower, and you can expect to start booking bigger events and start looking out over larger audiences. Now, number 1, I'm going to take you through each one of these things. They are simple. That's it. They are simple. You can follow them. Number 1 is keeping your promises to yourself. Something so many people don't do. They go through, they day in, day out, they say they're going to do something, and then they don't do it. And guess what that does? It tells your subconscious, it tells yourself that, oh, I can't be trusted to keep my word. Every time I make a promise to myself, I break it. So I don't trust me. That is literally what you are doing. When you keep a promise to yourself, you are building self-trust. Self-belief is worthless and will diminish if you do not have self-trust. It's not enough to just declare you're going to do something and then not follow through on the action. Knowledge isn't power. Action, doing, is power. So if you want to become and you want to feel more confident, you need to trust yourself. And you will trust yourself when you keep your promises to yourself, when you keep your word to yourself. If, say you have a friend, right? And this friend says to you, one morning, she's like, do you know what? I'm going to start coming to the gym with you. Every single Tuesday when you go to the gym, I'm coming with you. The first week, she's like, yeah, I've booked on. And then Tuesday morning, she messages you and she's like, oh, I'm really sorry. I've got to work now. But I'll come next week. Okay, you say, that's fine. You go to the gym on your own. You message your friend and you're like, oh, it was such a great session. You know, wish you could have been there. Next week, she says, great. I'm so geared up and ready to go. It's Monday. I'm so fired up to come to the gym with you tomorrow. Can't wait to work out together. And then Monday night comes and she goes, oh, I'm really sorry. I've got to cancel tomorrow. I can't make it now because so-and-so excuse. She gives another reason, another excuse. And you're like, okay. By this point, you start to think, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. 3rd time lucky. Maybe she'll come next week. Maybe you're not that person. And actually you're like, well, clearly you're not going to come after 1 night or 2 cancellations. You say, okay, well, I'm still going. I'm going to be there if anything changes. The following week comes and Tuesday morning, you message her and say, hey, I'm going to pick you up at 9:20 so that we get to the gym for 9:30. See you soon. And she calls you and she says, babe, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to give it a miss. Like, I don't really feel up to it. I'm not really in the mood. Do you know, I'm just going to chill this morning. You, after that point, will probably not mention the gym to that friend anymore. You won't expect her to come the following week or any week after that. Tuesday will come round, and if your friend messages you and says, I'm coming, you will either be shocked out of your mind, or you will say in your head or to them, you probably won't though. Because you have lost trust in them. Because they didn't keep their word. They said they were going to come to the gym, and every single time for the last 3 weeks, they've found an excuse. They haven't kept their promise to you. They haven't kept their word to you, and so you don't trust their word anymore. Well, guess what? You're doing that to yourself on the daily if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it. This is why, for a period of time, I stopped writing myself to-do lists. Because as an overachiever and as someone that is, highly ambitious, I would write out this to-do list with like 10 things on it. And there was no way in hell I could complete 10 things in one day unless I was awake for 36 hours and the day miraculously extended itself. It just wasn't going to happen. I was giving myself too many things to do. I was expecting far too much of myself. For example, filming a YouTube video. Well, when I film or I batch film some YouTube videos, I set a few hours aside. So say I start filming at 10 a.m. and I stop filming at 12 noon. That's my filming time, right? 2 hours. Say we've filmed 4 or 5 episodes in that time. Maybe more, who knows? Depends on the length of the episode. I then need to edit those videos, which again, editing, uploading, adding captions, which currently, in this moment, I still do myself. I don't have anyone that does that for me. That takes time. That takes a couple of hours to do all of that. And I don't do loads of editing, but I do lob off the beginning and the end. And then it takes time to upload. I write out my caption. So maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours. That's 6 hours. I've also eaten lunch at some point there. Maybe had lunch 12 till 1. And then it's 3 o'clock. Oh, and then I'm going to do something else. So maybe there's 3 or 4 things that I actually do have time to get done, unless they're super quick things per day. And in that process of giving myself so many things, I would find I'm chasing to deliver and keep my word to myself, because I am so committed to myself and I will not let myself down. I hate liars. I hate it when people say, I am going to do this, and they don't go and do it. There's nothing that frustrates me more in this world. So if I'm honest, I don't trust other people to deliver on their word. I just don't hold that expectation. But I do trust myself to keep my word. So when I'm giving myself too much to do on this to-do list, I completely got rid of to-do lists for a while. I was like, do you know what? We're not doing to-do lists, but this is what we do on each day of the week. And I gave myself specific days: a CEO day, a filming and performance day, a creation ideas planning day, a behind the scenes like editing, scheduling, captioning, writing, planning day, a client calls day or areas of time. And that's what then continued to work best for me for a while. I have now gone back to having a to-do list, but I literally, if there are more than 5 things on my to-do list, I scrap it and we start again and we go, what actually is realistically possible for me to do today? Because I don't have an endless amount of time to invest in doing things that need to get done, or I want to get done. And I want to keep my word to myself. So where in your life are you saying, I'm going to do this, and then you don't go and do it? I'm going to pitch myself for that event I really want to speak at, and a week has passed and you still haven't pitched yourself. Or, oh, I really want to do that Instagram live. I'm going to talk on this. You've got your talking points, you're ready to go. And you're like, oh, I can't do it today because I didn't wash my hair this morning. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes round. You're busy doing the busy work, and then it gets to 4 p.m. and you're like, oh, do you know what? It's a bit late now to be doing an Instagram live. I'll do it next week, and you push it back. you are breaking trust with yourself. So that's the number one thing. Keep your promises to yourself. If you say you are going to do something, do it. Do it, do it, do it. Like a blood pact, do it. That's quite extreme. Second thing, to build your confidence, because that's the inner work, right? And the external work just won't happen and won't work if you don't have the inner work done. So trust in yourself is number one. You have to build self-trust. Self-trust and self-belief are besties. It's like a complete circle. If you believe in yourself and then you keep your word to yourself, you build self-trust, which means you believe in yourself more. You keep your word to yourself, you build self-trust, which builds self-belief. Like it's an ongoing circle. The moment you break that circle because you didn't keep your word to yourself, self-trust drops and self-belief becomes completely irrelevant, something you just don't have. And then you don't believe in you, so why should anyone else believe in you? And it's just, you end up in a spiral. It's not a good place to be. Number two, let's move on. Number two, speaking in public. That's how you become a more confident public speaker. And this can be in any scenario. You don't have to wait to be on stage. Social media is a fantastic platform that you can jump on and speak to people. You can go live on literally everything. I found out last week that you can go live on LinkedIn now. Like, you can go live on any platform and just get used to speaking. And the fun part is you don't have to do anything with it. You can literally go on an Instagram live, talk about anything, and even if you're sat there thinking, God, this is awful, like I'm just talking around in circles, whatever, what am I talking about? Once you hit end live, discard the video and it disappears forever. That's the joy of it. And if you're really proud of it and you want it to be something that stays there, then you put it on as a video and it stays on your feed and something that people can watch. You share it. You can go out in public right now, and I really recommend doing this in person because it is a very different experience speaking into the abyss, which is what you're doing, online. Like, I know that I'm speaking to you, but I don't know I'm speaking to you. Whereas when you're in person, in public, in a real place, and you're speaking to a person, that person is there. They are responding to you. They hear you, they see you. You feel seen, you feel heard, and you actually get good at human interaction. You feel more confident in using your voice in a public setting. Speak in public, even if it's saying good morning to somebody you walk past. This also builds confidence because you build resilience through this as well. Because there might be times, where people don't respond to you, they look at you weird. There might be times where you ask the cashier or you ask that barista in the coffee shop a question and they give you like a one-word answer, or they don't respond, or they say no. It's a really good resilience builder, which the more resilient you become, the more confident you become. They kind of come hand in hand as well. So if you want to build confidence, public speaking, like speaking from stages, speaking at networking events, speaking to a room full of people, then get yourself speaking in public to anyone. Like, have conversations with people. I think like having a dog or having a child is always like a conversation starter. Like when I go out for a walk with my dog Gus, who's a miniature sausage dog, he is like the most gorgeous dog, but he literally draws attention. Babies, children and dogs are like celebrities. People just, they swarm to them. It's not very often that I go out for a walk with Gus and I don't end up speaking to somebody. And that's not even often through me. So if you have a dog, if you have a child, like actually utilize that and openly have conversations rather than one-word answers. See if you can continue that and you can be the driver of the conversation. That will make you more confident in your own voice and being seen. That's what that's all about. That's where that builds confidence. And then the third and final thing is do scary shit. It sounds really obvious, right? But also sounds kind of vague. So let me give you some direction with this and explain why this works. When you do something that gets you out of your comfort zone, you grow. You also learn that actually it wasn't that scary and that you can handle anything. Learning that you can handle anything builds self-trust, which goes back to what I said in the first point, the keeping your word to yourself, keeping your promises to yourself. When you build self-trust, you build more self-belief. When you do something that scares you, yes, it can be terrifying, the thought of doing it, but actually very often when you've done it, you're like, oh, do you know what? I feel great. Like, I feel really good. I can't believe I did that. That builds your confidence. Whether that is something, something scary to you would be, I'm going to give you an example here. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was 13, I started going to a stage school every Saturday. It's like a Saturday workshop. We did an hour of singing, an hour of acting, an hour of dance. I was terrified of singing on my own. I was a very quiet child. I wasn't who you see now at all. Like, most of the people that knew me as a child, a lot of the time don't recognise me now because I'm so different. It's not that I look massively different. Like, actually, I've got my natural hair colour again now, whereas for a long period of time I was blonde. It's not that I look different. It's that my energy and my confidence is vastly different to when I was a child. I was definitely very, very quiet. I grew up in quite a quiet household. I was quite shy. I was very understated. I was a dark horse because people very often didn't know I existed. But then as sort of through my teens and into adulthood, I have excelled because I found who I am. And so going back to this, I had the opportunity to audition for a singing solo for the show I was doing. So the first musical I did at this stage school was Les Miserables, which is a pretty meaty musical for my first show. I mean, lucky me, right? So I was like, I need to do this. You didn't have to audition. It wasn't compulsory to sing solo on your own. Like, you didn't have to do it. I wanted to do it because I was like, I want to be brave. I want to do something that scares me. Like, I didn't overthink it. I was like, I just want to do this. When I stepped into that audition room, I was terrified. Like, I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. I was sweating. And I literally took a breath and I burst out crying. I had these tears streaming down my face and they were like, Gemma, like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm just really, really nervous. And they were like, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to, like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to sing on your own. Like, go outside, take a breath. And I was like, no, I'm in here. I want to do this. I really want to do this. Just like, give me a moment. So I took a breath and I started singing, which if you have ever cried and tried to sing afterwards, I mean, it is a skill. I look up to, I admire and am astounded by anyone that can cry and sing really well at the same time. It is a skill because crying like closes up your throat. Your voice is all quivery, like, how people do it, I don't know. It's something that even as a singer for 14 years, like, I've never mastered it. If I cry, it chokes me up and that's it. So as you can imagine, my singing wasn't great. I was also so quiet, like a mouse. They probably couldn't even hear me. However, the fact that I did that and got through that, I walked out of that audition room and I was so proud of myself and felt even just a minuscule amount braver. It meant that next time we had an audition opportunity to, sing solo, which this time the musical was Fame, I stepped into that audition room and I was like, right, I've got this. Well, guess what? I cried again. And I remember my drama teacher and the principal of the school coming out from behind her little, they sit just like you see on the TV shows for like, X Factor and whatever else, Britain's Got Talent and all these other different talent shows. They were sat behind the desk and then there was a pianist, somebody playing the piano at the side. And she came out from behind the desk and she gave me a hug. And she stood in front of me and she was holding my shoulders. And she's really short. She was the same height as me at the time. And she held my shoulders and she was like, Gemma, you don't need to do this. And I was like, I do. I really want to do this. You just need to give me a minute to get through this because there will be a day when I don't do this. And guess what? There was a day where I walked into that room in front of those people, I sang and I didn't cry. I was shaking, every part of my body was shaking, but I managed to hold in the tears. I managed to get through it without an ounce of emotion, like fear emotion and crying, and that was it. That was the breakthrough moment. Because I went through that discomfort, I did something on repeat that scared the shit out of me, that made me feel so uncomfortable that most people, especially a teenage girl, most people would not put themselves through, because discomfort is where the growth happens, but most people, 90% of people would rather stay comfortable. There's a figure that I heard recently that 70% of people fear public speaking over anything else. That's wild to me. Wild. That 70% of people will not speak in a public, like from a stage or in a room, because it scares them and they don't want to be uncomfortable. And what I want to do in this third point, is encourage you to do the scary shit and give you my reframe of fear. If I feel uncomfortable, if I feel afraid, I don't say no. I don't say, okay, stop, we're not doing this. I'm afraid. Instead, I pause, I take a breath, and I say, fear equals green light, let's go. And I do it anyway. I do it no matter what. Because growth is what happens on the other side of fear. Confidence is what grows on the other side of fear. Resilience grows on the other side of fear. Self-trust, self-belief grow on the other side of fear. Nobody is without fear. Anyone that says they're fearless or that, the goal is to be fearless, they're lying. They're making shit up. Everyone feels afraid. And anyone that says that they aren't afraid of anything, they're shitting themselves. I call BS. But the difference is, when you do it despite the fear, you open up a whole avenue of options, a whole new series of doors, a whole new area of possibility and opportunity. You become limitless when fear no longer holds you back. So next time you're in a situation where you feel afraid, and I mean like as long as it's like physically safe, like don't go and do anything like insane, stupid, not, safe. Like if you're putting yourself in actual danger. But I mean fear in your brain and your body are perceiving it to be dangerous when actually like it's not dangerous. Like, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. You'll actually be stronger on the other side. I want you to look at it. I want you to pause. I want you to take a breath and say, fear equals green light, let's go. And you do it. Ooh. Oh, I love this episode. I love this episode because if you can, and if you do, go and follow these 3 things. If you keep your promises to yourself, you keep your word to yourself, if you go and you speak more in public situations, you go and you introduce yourself at networking events, you go and speak to people that you don't know in public, you draw attention or you put yourself in a position where you are going to be seen, you are going to be heard. And then finally, you do the scary shit. You say fear equals green light, let's fricking go. You do those 3 things, your confidence will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And people will say to you, you're so confident all of a sudden. Or where has this confidence come from? And you can say, I watched an episode of the Speaker Toolkit with Gemma Ann Barnes. She gave me these 3 steps to follow. I freaking followed them over the last few months, over the last few weeks, and I am unstoppable. I am limitless. My confidence has grown exponentially. You'll be speaking on bigger stages. You'll be walking out on that stage thinking, do you know what? I don't feel sick. I feel great. You'll be speaking from the stage with a clicker in your hand or a microphone in your hand, and you'll notice that you're not shaking at all. You feel as comfortable in there as you do laying in your bathtub with your candles and your favourite book. Because you built confidence. Go follow these 3 steps and watch your confidence grow. And if you loved this episode, if you found this episode useful and you are going to do these 3 things, I want you to comment below. I want you to leave a comment and say, do you know what? Let's literally just put me in the comment. If you are going to do these 3 things, I want you to put me in the comments. And then come back in a couple of weeks' time and report back to me how you feel, what effect it's had on your confidence after committing to these 3 things. Keep your word to yourself. Go and use your voice in a public environment. Be seen, be heard. And do the scary shit. Fear equals green light, let's go. I'll see you on the next episode.